Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. What is going on, family? Let me make sure that I arrange this camera accordingly. That's right. Welcome to your weekly rendezvous Monday Quality Talks with yours truly, Boddhi Satva. This is MQT 47, and following the advice of my good brother Keisha, I think it was auspicious that I take this opportunity, and it is always a great opportunity to use this show as a platform to tell my story, and maybe give you guys informations and stories that you certainly may not know of, and just get you acquainted with my contribution to this thing we call the music industry, and specifically talking about electronic music and Afro House, as we call it nowadays. Ancestral Soul is going to be the topic of today's show. First and foremost, let me ask you to press those like buttons. Feel free to join in the chat, interact, ask questions, whatever you want to share. It's an interactive session, so let's have a good time together. Make sure you also show some love at the super chat, super stickers, if you feel like this content is of value to you. Let me know if you're hearing me well. Jump in the conversation. Don't be shy. This is our space of expression, and we're here to let's have a good time. Ancestral Soul, man. So let me first start by bringing you guys back to when I was in Central African Republic. So for those of you who may not know, I was born in Central African Republic, capital city Bangui, at the Hôpital Général, so the General Hospital of Bangui. And I was raised in Bria, where I lived for, I think I lived in Bangui until probably I was like 6, 7, and then we moved to Bria, which is 600 kilometers to the eastern part of Central African Republic. And we've lived there up until I was on my 17th birthday, almost 18th birthday, when I actually left Central African Republic to continue my studies in Belgium. So to give you another background, my parents met in a nightclub, a very famous nightclub in Belgium. At the time, my grandfather, my father's dad, was the ambassador of Central African Republic to Central Africa, the ambassador to Central African Republic in Belgium. My mother was a designer. She owned a store called Les Petites Heures du Matin in Brussels. That was a very, very known store for anything decoration and interior designs, etc. My mother had already gotten a name for herself as being, somebody who was a tastemaker and somebody who not only studied the Beaux-Arts, but really had a beautiful, sharp eye for, anything beautiful. And so they met at this club called the Mirano Continental. And supposedly, I guess my father stepped on my mother's toes or something like that. And they probably romanticized it a little bit. But anyways, flashing forward, I think, fast forwarding, sorry, I think one of my father's old friend hid her number from him, and they had arranged for a date or something, and my father's friend who was at the club that night hit her number just to to mess with my dad, and he almost didn't make it, but then eventually his friend just setting that he was really getting close to getting slapped or whatnot. I'm exaggerating that, but eventually my father got the number, and so they linked up, and I guess the rest is history. At the time, my dad was 19, and my mom was 32, and 20 years old. I was born. My dad was, I think, 20 and 21, so very very young. My mother already had my two oldest brothers, and my oldest brothers were very into arts, anything creative. So as I grew up as a kid, I was always inspired by my oldest brothers who were really into the music, really into the instruments. Eldest brother who passed away back in 1991, I believe, was he? Yeah, 91. Was a massive, amazing drummer. And he was also an amazing painter. Like, this guy could draw on some Keith Haring vibes. He was really inspired by, Basquiat, Keith Haring, and so on and so forth. He was just this very skilled guy. He had, and his art really truly represented, his state of mind, and his personal experiences, and so on and so forth. So really getting acquainted to what we call art in general, I guess sort of like planted some sort of seeds in me, and so big that my older brothers were out of the club, etc. You got to remember, this is early 80s, so we are looking at the birth of new beats, techno, and all these genres of music that are really starting to really take over the world, the underground, etc. A massive era for music, and so they were part of that. And as in Central African Republic, we didn't really have access to this kind of music. They would like record cassettes, little cassettes for me to play in my Sony Walkman or Panasonic, whatever the brand might have been back in the days. And I remember, man, it was just, sounds that I had. It was crazy, but it was amazing at the same time, and contrasting so much with what I was acquainted to, being in Central African Republic when they were in Belgium, and I was in Central African Republic, and you gotta understand, like, being in a household where your parents also have a great diversity in musical tastes, from Miles Davis to how do you call this, to freaking Eric Clapton, to, I mean, you name it, man. The whole 9 yards of pop culture, jazz, funk, soul, eventually R&B. My dad wasn't necessarily too much of an R&B head, but my uncles were, especially his second younger brother. I mean, he was a big R&B head, so he also got me really into the R&B sounds. And so I had this really interesting contrast in having these influences of, electronic music, traditional, music from Central African Republic, also so folklore, Central African folklore, Central African, rumba and dombolo and sukus. The whole period of the sukus time were just massive as well. All these influences really were pivotal in planting a seed in me that eventually will grow to be what we know it to be now, which is, me being a music producer, DJ, etc., and so on. But at the time, being that my older brothers were, musicians. They were playing guitar. They were multi instrumentalists. Playing drums, guitars, percussions, etc. My father was like, okay, let me give this boy, music classes. So he hired this amazing musician from back home. May he rest in peace, Maquet. Man, that guy, yo. When you're a kid, you don't. The truth is that I think, as much as I like the music, I just didn't have obviously the maturity to really get into the blessing of having such a master being there and just taking his precious time and teaching me. So I really, really, really didn't put too much consideration in these classes. I was still a kid. But anyway, I do remember that he taught me a little bit of guitar. And I think that the concept that the thing of guitar was that it was painful to my fingers. And I really always had a thing for drums and percussions. That was always what called me at first. Obviously, I loved the melodies, but for me, it was drums. What always called me was drums, percussions. And I wanted to really deep into that knowledge and really understanding what that was about. You know what I mean? And so, eventually, we went on to start playing some drums, and not so long after that, my oldest brother, Boris, he died. He committed suicide, 21 years old, and well, when at the time I wasn't told that he had committed suicide. My parents were, scared to tell me, so they said that he died from a motorbike accident. So, which either way, it doesn't really matter at this point. He's dead. He's dead. So that was my big brother. So I was devastated, and I think from that point I stopped. My love for music just really was gone. As in, I couldn't see drums, musicianship. None of these things meant anything for me because my big brother was gone, and there is only I see my brother when he died. I was to be probably 10 years old. Yeah, 10 years old I think. Yeah, about that. And eventually, a year or two after, I started to get that love back again, and hip hop really came to a big time for me. So much so that I started, writing some lyrics, and interestingly enough, I was also being educated about drums, traditional drums, percussions, and drums being used as a mean to share messages from one village to another by the people working at the property, right? Parents had this massive, massive property back home, and we had helpers at the house, and they really, I was really attached to just spending time with them more than anything. And so we were homeschooled. My father was a diamond dealer. My mother was into her fashion and developing at the time jewelry, potentially for entering the haute couture, high fashion. And so for me, all that was great, but I had this thing for just really getting more in touch with my roots, and understanding what was that magic, because it really for me was magic. I mean, drums made me feel a certain way. Also, we had this sound called umbroto from my region, and it's a very unique kind of sound. It's um, it's like a didgeridoo, but basically it's like this massive horn made out of wood, and it's huge, and it makes this really scary sounds. It's very scary, but it's scary, but at the same time, yeah, it's powerful, really, really powerful. So for me, that plus all the drums, which there was this mystique, and there was also a lot of mysticism around that as well. Obviously, there's a big connection with spirits, with calling upon the ancestors and cleansing and the rituals of removing evil spirits, etc., etc. So there was this whole magic huh, around these experiences for me that was just triggered my interest and my curiosity to just dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into understanding the healing powers of drums. Obviously, it wasn't as elaborated in my head at the time, but that was, fast. I mean, thinking back and looking back, that clearly is what it was. And so hip hop really was answering that call because I was able to then express things that was in my heart, that was in my mind that I just couldn't express verbally. Coming from a household where, African fathers, our African dads are very strict. My dad was very, very strict. And, looking back, I'm thankful he was, but at the time, trust me, it was hell fucked up because I was just not feeling that too much. But, you know, he definitely wanted to make of me a respectable man, make of me a pillar, because eventually that's what happens in our educations. We raise our kids, our eldest sons and daughters, and all of our kids usually, but specifically the eldest ones, to be the pillars of the family. Mountain of inspiration. What's going on, King? Oh man, thank you very much. Thank you. You're the first to bring that thumb up, yo. Definitely appreciate that indeed. That's lots of love as usual. Merci beaucoup. And so, it was very interesting. It was very interesting because there was this sense of it was strict, but it was love. But it was in a bit it was a bit of a tough love, but there was love. I felt like I was not loved, and I think that's something that was very poignant and very helpful in also helping me balanced as much as possible. Uh, and so, you know, I started this hip hop crew with my homies back home, and so for you to understand, I come from a very fortunate background in the sense that, by all standards, my parents were rich. We had this massive property. We were traveling with private jets. We had what you can call athlete comfort. We were living 600 kilometers away from the capital city, Bangui, and we had we had satellite TV, so over 600 channels. Da 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 da. I mean, very fortunate, but I was always uncomfortable with that, in the sense that for me, when I would get step out of the property, would see my friends, my brothers, my sisters, that some of them were also doing good because their parents were also in the diamonds business or the gold business and so on and so forth, but not everybody was, and even those who were not always necessarily doing well financially. But nonetheless, there was always a sense of dignity. There was never really this this crazy misery. One of the reasons of that not being the case is because my father, as young as he was when he embraced that business of the diamonds, the rough diamond business, I don't know how he developed that thing, but he was I mean, for me, this was social capitalism, if I may call it that way. He knew how to make money with, without it being um, a situation where people would not benefit from it somehow. He allowed, he created a system that really impacted the community, the city of Bria, and around it in a way that financially and economically, really to that point. Huh? For example, when my father was living for vacation, the whole time he was away, for example, I mean, we would go, most of the time we would be in Belgium because, we had stronger, connections in Belgium, given that my friends had met in Brussels and, some of my older brothers were in Belgium, my aunt, my father's sister, was also there. So we we had a connection with Belgium that was, rather obvious. So whenever we would leave for vacation, the whole region for the time it was gone would just run slow. It was very interesting. But he had managed to really bring forth a massive economical stability. Every Fridays, he was doing what we call well, some people call it sacrifice, but he was really giving money to all the poor people that were, the homeless people, very, very, very desperately poor. They would come at home. Those who needed, treatment for, medical treatment. He would have like one of the doctors, or he would have like a nurse or two coming in, check everybody. They would prescribe, medicine, and if they needed an operation, my father would pay for those operations. Like it was just, yeah, it was amazing. It was really, really amazing. And thank you, brother. Thank you very much, brother King. I appreciate that. And but my father always talking about wealth. He always made sure that understood that what he had built was his hard work, not mine, and that all I was very fortunate to be born in this environment, but that I would have to work to get mine. And very early, that really helped shaping me a sense of independence and a real sense of respecting the hustle. And so, quite young, I was already, involved in business. So, I had managed to speak to some of his, clients and friends in the business to borrow me some money, some 50,000 CFA and or 100,000 CFA, which would be like what? So nowadays it would be maybe 120 euros. What at the time, that was a lot of money. And so I would, grab my bike, motorcycles, two of my boys, and we would just like, ride and invest in diamond mines. We would have like, I was told there was an area that had like, good prospects for diamonds. And so, I went there, I met this guy who already had his mine. He just needed somebody to invest a bit of money. So I was like, well, I have the money. And I asked him how much he needed. He was like, I just need, well, he needed like, well, rather decent money. He needed like 1 million CFA. And just like, I don't have that kind of money right now, but I can fix 150,000. And he was like, all right, cool. And so, you know, um, you know, it's interesting because you're always triggered by the stories of this one guy that was, literally, you know, taking out his, his um that thing they used to, to sort out the diamonds. I forgot the name. In French, we call it tamis. So he would have the story of this guy that would find this massive stone of, you know, um 50, 70 carats, which is huge and a lot of money. So, we all had that dreams like, oh, maybe it's our chance. And long story short, we did find some diamonds, but they were far from being enough to cover the investment we had made, and so eventually that was gone. But I was very that was very interesting because these were some of the endeavors that at a very young age I was really, inspired to do, and to get involved into to create my own financial, freedom. But even though it didn't pay out, it was great knowledge gathered, and also being, in conversations with my friends who didn't have necessarily the means. Like one of my childhood friend, uh, Sylvain, man, both his parents died. He was very, very young. My father always looked out for him. And all my friends really, even though they had their parents, some of them were their parents or not, you know, my parents always made sure that they would benefit from the education that they would give us. They would also give it to them because they, when they would come on weekends, spend time with us on weekends, sleep over, etc. You know, um, my father was like, "Look, I'm going to give you guys the same tools I'm giving my boy," because in the future you are all going to be, all of you are going to be men in in the future, and you will need to know how to carry yourself in business, in life, etc. Outside of what you're already receiving education wise from your parents, but I need to show you how it works in the other world, in the Western world, etc. So that was very pivotal because all of my friends with whom I grew up, all of them are in Europe, some of them are in the US, and my boy Sylvain, whom I want to interview one day, I want to bring him on the show to speak on that because his life, for example, was one of the most inspiring and most difficult life one human being can think of having, and still willing um, to push through despite all the odds that were against him. I mean, that's what you call motherfucking resilience. It's beyond the word resilience. This guy's faith is surpassing anyone I have personally met, including mine. And trust me, I'm a tough nut, but that guy here, something else. The shit that he went through in his life. So many people would have just killed themselves, just given up on whatever. So, exactly, mountain inspiration indeed. My dad was a man of the people. And my grandfather was also a man of the people. My grandfather was a politician. He was one of the first men to bring communism to Central Africa. Um, and so there's a lot of history to that. And, you know, he was a very strict man. Ooh, my granddad, I used to, well, in French, in English, you don't have that distinction in the word you, but in French, there's the familiar use of you, and there's the respectful way of using the you. As when you address somebody that's older than you, right? So I never, funny enough, I never called my granddad like, it was I always had the respectful way of saying you to my granddad. So I would say vous instead of tu. It could have never crossed my mind to even, say tu. Never, 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 never. Yeah, my granddad was one of those guys who was just like, that guy. But, another one. That one was real tough fucking love. Oof, oof. As a kid, I just didn't fucking get it. I thought he hated me. But, eventually, as we said back home, I was the eldest of all, I was the first, and I'm the first and eldest of all the grandkids from the family. So quite a lot was, laying on my shoulders from a very young age. And as you can imagine, expectations and so on and so forth. So you feel like you gotta own up to something that you're not even sure what it is. But you're in it, so you gotta figure it out. And so why I'm giving you all these backgrounds because for you to understand how Ancestral Soul came about, how my sound and how my bringing was, so that you can have real perspective on this version of me that has come to fruition now. And so, talking about my boy, merci la milliardaire, bonsoir Queen la milliardaire, merci beaucoup, sois la bienvenue. My boy Twadere Sylvain has always been a big inspiration for me. As we were playing basketball, because that's another thing. I was big into ball, like that was my thing. I wanted to be in the NBA. One of my father's childhood friend, Eugene Pewa, Eugene, was still is um, involved in basketball business, but he was a friend of Patrick Ewing and all these guys. So, you know, I was having hopes that because he was my father's friend, maybe he might be able to coach me and get me to accomplish my dream. Well, that didn't quite happen in a rather concrete way, but um, my boy Silva really would have deserved to get to UCLA and the NBA. He would have really been a massive NBA player. Um, all of us, as a matter of fact, we had these big dreams, and being that I was fortunate enough to have the family that I had, the kind of financial freedom my parents were able to afford us, the chance to really make use of that. I couldn't conceive of it being just about me. That was just impossible. Now I had to share that with my friends, with my homies. And really, when I think back, I was ashamed to be blessed with so much financial um, wealth. But at the same time, I was my way of compensating it was by giving away everything I had. Like if my parents would buy me new sneakers and so boom, I would give them away. You know, there was a sense of I wanted to be like my friends. I obviously knew that poverty was nothing nice, and my friends were just like, "Yo, bro, you know, give thanks. You're not poor. You don't want to be poor. We want to be where you are. You don't want to be where we are. And there was poverty, but as I said earlier, there was also a lot of dignity. So even though my father was there for most of my homies and their families, you know, he made sure that they were able to also sustain themselves and make shit happen for themselves. Like one of my older childhood friend, I mean, he's much older than me, but Alaji, for example, Alaji, this guy, God, man, this man, to this day, he's the most amazing man I know as far as his creativity. This man, as a kid, first of all, as an artist, hands down, he learned how to fix engines without having learned anything about mechanics or electricity. This fucking guy could fix engines. We were building little engines for bamboo, toys made out of bamboo. He would literally create like this old bamboo truck, beautiful, massive bamboo truck with his own engine. To the point where he had the controller with the whole thing was linked, and he was able to control this thing. Like, Alaji is one of those guys, man. To this day, he is an now he has become an architect. He builds houses in Senegal, in the northern part of Senegal. He fixes bridges. I mean, he knows how to fix telephones. This guy, I don't even was a hacker of internet at some point. I'm just like, there's some people who have just these amazing gifts, and he's one of those brothers who just had that thing about them. He has a gift. So I was always really blessed to have really this strong bros around me. These brothers from other mothers with whom we would fight, we would argue, but we would always be together. We would always come back. We would always reunite, and we've never lost touch of one another to this day. And thank God, we are still all alive to this day. Many have died, but we're still here. And so when I decided, to get into this hip hop thing, it was obviously associated with basketball. So we would, and you gotta understand, it was amazing because we were able to really dive into, our full expression of in our artistry, but also the fact that we were able to all be together, playing ball, etc. was just, man, I can't even begin to explain and describe the feeling. It was really, really, really special, really, really special. And so, since I had all this, you know, these emotions that I quite didn't know how to handle, music and hip hop specifically came about as the ultimate way of how to say this, of bringing forth the healing that I needed. And so we started the Bekbaku, that we used as a platform to just perform live. So we started performing super early, and performing at this place called Paraskotu. Man, DJ Fonfon. I don't know what has become of this brother, man. DJ Fonfon. I had my first DJ set, one of my first DJ sets, publicly in a massive venue. I don't know. Wait, no. Oh. So we performed at this club, Palace Koto. I would play a little set. It wasn't necessarily the biggest performance, but the point is that early on, it became something. We everything we did with the intention of doing it big. When we played basketball, we wanted to be the best, right? So much so that I asked my dad at a certain point, if he would not, present himself to see if he could become the president of the league of the east of Haute-Koto, of our region called the hospital. And he accepted eventually, and financed a little bit, and so we were able to travel internally in the country and have local competitions eventually to go to the capital city and bowl with the big boys, which we eventually had a chance to do, and we were massacred in such a tremendous way. It was crazy. But anyway, also all that to say that everything we did, we always did it with the spirit and the intention of doing it big, of doing it properly. We never half-assed anything. We would work out. We would go to play ball every morning. We would wake up 5:30, 6 a.m. Latest, we were already out running to the court, and then playing ball for an hour, training for an hour, then going back home. So that was the thing. I mean, my dad himself was waking up super early. He would go from 6 a.m. for a run. He would do I don't know how many kilometers, and come back by 7:15. We'll be back, boom, ready for his day. And so all of these inspirations and his way of doing things were really inspiring you to just keep your game all the way up. You just didn't want to fail at work. It's just everybody's keeping each other accountable and trying to see so what's up. And basically, when the music really came about for me, I realized that okay, I like the rapping part of things, but I wasn't the best, and I knew that there was some guys in my crew that was just killers at that thing, and we were rapping over known beats. We even did lipping basically. So we would play a joint by a specific hip hop band. So for example, I Am, and we would rap over their raps. But the same lyrics, obviously. So it was kind of like a playback kind of situation, and people were there. People would be applauding us. I mean, I have videos of that. I'll upload. So I have to actually, I found the cassettes. I have to get them converted into in a format that will allow me to upload them soon on this channel. But yeah, I mean, beat making was really becoming the thing that I felt like okay, I needed to get back to, and so that's how. Well, I get back to actually get into, because I just was obviously after the death of my brother at the time, that was very, very far away from me. But then I was like, okay, let me get into this thing, And so eventually on one of those vacations, actually not true. In 2000, I I was living in Central African Republic, moving to Europe, um, and I think that was a very traumatic thing for me as a kid because I was 18 years old. This is here is a place where I've never seen myself being living out of. Just for me, Europe was just like Babylon. I was getting into a world that I enjoyed going to for a month or two per year, but I was always in my environment being back home in Central African Republic. So that alone was a big trauma, was a big, big trauma. And I remember to this day, the day I left, man, oh man, the whole town, and all my friends, like, close, not so close, everybody, we were all crying. Everybody was crying because I was gonna live forever. And hmm, I'm pretty sure some of you can relate to that, but that feeling it makes you grow. It makes you grow because shit, man. Mm, it's a specific feeling. It's hard to explain and put this into words. But anyways, as complicated as it was, moving to Europe allowed me to, start getting into, some technological stuff, computers, and learning about, specific music programs. I think I started, early because the idea was like, okay, cool, guys. When I'm in Europe, I'm gonna make beats and send them to you guys. So already then, because we had at the time, so it was hip hop. So we're like, we're gonna make it big, no matter what. I'm in Europe, don't worry. I'll be the beat maker, da 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 da. See, who I can talk to. I mean, we already had a vision from early on. That's what we wanted to do. And a year after, I went back to Central African Republic for vacation. So 2 years after, so 2001 or 2002, 2002, I believe I was there. And that was the last time I went after I returned there back in 2012. So 10 years. So in 2002, I had been in Europe, at the time in Belgium for, already 2 years. And so I came back with some beats and, we started working on some ideas and, you know, um, you could see that there was already some little, everybody was on about their own stuff. So I was like, all right, cool, get it, and it's long, in 2 years, man, can't expect everybody to be aligned, right? And people gotta hustle. Some of us already had kids, some of my boys already had kids. So that was a big blow. We never felt, with the core crew, GB, with who else was there? There was like Saleh, GB, but unfortunately Catastrophe, he died. I think it was this in 2004 or something. But anyways, so we held on. So I returned back to Europe after these vacations, and then eventually I decided to stop school. It wasn't for me. I was getting super depressed, and music was just my thing. Because you got to bear in mind all this time. I'm nostalgic. I want to go back to Central African Republic. I don't see myself to be in Europe anymore. But after 2, 3 years, 4 years, you start to realize that you won't go anytime soon. And then unfortunately, some things happen, in the family and the personal level, which I won't get into right now, but I would in time probably. Um, my father had to take exile pretty much. My sisters, my mother, everybody had to leave at some point. And so music really was this point of salvation for me. And I was making beats, but not on a level that was, sufficient to say I was doing anything specifically dope, but it was okay. I was experimenting, of course, as anything you start, you're not going to be all of a sudden dope at it. But I had a vision. And in the meantime, so when I decided to stop school, my dad was like, look, It's not the end of the world. I wish you went to university and all that. It's okay. It's not for you. It wasn't for me when I was your age. I also started school when I was 18. And look at me. I'm a successful man now. So it's not, it doesn't mean you won't succeed in life. But you're gonna have to get your ass up, get to work. All right, cool. So that's what I did. And I went into the diamonds business where I um studied, uh, the craft of polishing and cutting diamonds, and also the sorting of diamonds, rough diamonds, etc. So I took quite some um, pleasure at diving into that because you got to bear in mind this is what I grew up in. My father was in that business, so that's my life. I've seen diamonds all my life. I've seen, so it wasn't foreign. So I had really already had a gift for it. Interestingly enough, a gift that I didn't know I had until obviously I went there and the teachers were like, oh, this boy is really talented. So had it not been for the hurdles we've encountered along the way at some point, I would have probably never, been here talking to you guys on YouTube because I would have probably chosen a completely different path and probably making, loads of millions with my, in this business. But, art was always there. And so when these different hurdles happened to my family and I got disgusted by the whole business of diamonds, I just was like, all right, cool, fuck this. I want to dive into music. And whether my father likes the idea or not, this is what I'm going to do. Well, that's brave me talking. The reality is that I was, very lucky that my older brother, my second older brother, and one of his friends went and spoke to my dad and said, look, let this boy do his thing. Let him try. Give him a year. And if after a year or you don't see anything, then yeah, okay, cool. You can start saying something. But otherwise, give him a chance to do it, to prove to you that he can do this. And he did. He said, okay, cool. I'll give you 1 year. And if after 1 year, if you prove me wrong, you're gonna do what I ask you to do. If you don't prove me wrong, you're gonna do what I'm asking you to do. I said, okay. A year in, I went out there and busted my ass and linked up with people and big shout out to Roberta and Dennis from Urban Groove at the time, big record store. My first time touching a vinyl was there in their store. First time I ever. I think like putting it on the techniques and started to, put that needle on it and just press start. That feeling was the most incredible shit. And same thing. I started mixing for the first time in the store. And she was like, yo, you're so passionate. She let me behind the desk and she was like, all right, cool, come and play. I started mixing 2 records. I had never mixed records before. I DJ'd before. I knew what it was to play a track after the other, but I never blended songs together. So right then and there, she was like, yo, you've been DJing for a long time? I said, no. It's my first time really, DJing like that with vinyls, which is not an easy art to do. An easy thing to do, sorry. She was blown away. She was like, man, yo, cool. So I would go there regularly, go to the store regularly, and I discovered at the time Oshun Day. And in the process of digging to those records, I stumbled upon Alton Miller's 12-inch. But actually, let me bring things back. My brother Laurent had a friend who I was very impressed by this guy. What's his name? Christian, I believe, yeah. Purist, music purist, a bit of a nubhead, to be honest with you, very cocky, but not a bad guy. But I always felt him. It was hard to grasp this dude, And but he felt that I was passionate about sounds, and he was okay. This little boy is okay, whatever. So he gave me a bunch of CDs. And I started diving into the cities, and inside one of these in one of the cities there was some Kraftwerk, there was freaking Daft Punk, Alton Miller, Rhythm Exposed. Man, there was so many albums, so many artists. I mean, Juan Hatkins, I mean, you name it, the legends of techno and house, etc., and deep house. Just for me to understand, what this music was about. Another friend of my brother, Nicola, actually, this dude, man, smoked so many spliffs, but had the biggest fucking knowledge in music. Reggae, funk, soul, rare grooves, live that shit to him. That guy is a freaking living dictionary or whatever the fuck he has as knowledge is something incredible that um was really helpful in giving me profound knowledge. So all these guys, they gave me CDs, so I burned those CDs, converted them into MP3s, etc., etc., etc. That's how I discovered Abby Hancock, for example. Man, just so many artists. So going back to that damn, I met the music of Oshun Day. Because Alto Milo already, when I heard his music, I was just like blown away, right? But actually, there's a part that I skipped. I'm sorry. When I was in Bria in Central Republic, back right before, even way before I moved to Europe in 2000, my uncle, my father's youngest brother, who was living in London at the time, brought back CDs to Bria during one summer on the during the vacation in the summer. Um, that CD was, I think it was Kevin Yost. Run About Midnight, that album. That was called Run About Midnight, I think. Oh, One Starry Night. One Starry Night. Man, this album, when you press play from beginning to end, that album changed my entire life. There's a couple of albums I can tell you like that just like blew me the fuck away. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to make this kind of music. I've never heard anything like that. Never. So you've got to understand, being introduced to all these sounds, I was just like a kid in a candy shop. I wanted to eat it all, and I wanted to consume all this music. And obviously, I had to prove myself in a year to my dad to show him that, that's what I want to do, and I'm going to succeed. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to do this. And so, discovering the music of Oshun Day, I remember to this day, it was Radu with Wumi on vocals. And that, it's like, those movies where you see an image and I guess the guy takes something, gets high and then gets sent to a different world. Well, I never done drugs, I smoke some weed every once in a while, but only in an environment where there was either my brother or somebody of trust. But these things never really got me high anyway, so I never really found interest in these things. And let alone drugs, I never was into that, never tried it. So, not something that would be an experience I could speak on because I don't know what it is. But I do know that the experience I had when I heard these sounds was, if somebody told me that this was what it feels like, then for me, music has always been the biggest high. I have a kick and I have something when I hear certain sounds that just takes me to a place where I can't describe it. But in a spiritual form and in a spiritual way. And that's how I understood that music is spiritual. I had no idea until then that it was. My spirit got lifted in such a massive way. I just didn't expect it to be the case. But that's also because the experience that I've had of music was so organic and so natural before back home, and I wasn't articulating it in that way because I was in it. But being that I was away from home and I was trying to find myself in this new world, you got to bear in mind, when the first time I arrived in Belgium, I said hello to people on the streets. I didn't, you do back home, and people would look at me and be aggressive. I remember I said hello to one guy, to a group of people, and just said hello. I stood by the red light, and this guy came right up me, kicked me in my back, and I fell on my knees. And I turned back, and the guy was like, well, what the fuck are you gonna do? I was like, just said hello, and I just didn't understand this violence. But then, also that You choose to be peaceful, but because I've witnessed war, I experienced it firsthand, back in '97 in Central African Republic. So, violence is not something that when you've seen that kind of cruelty and violence, you want to stay far from violence, but you can be violent as well. So that guy, so when that guy saw my eyes, I think he realized that, oh, shit would hit the fan, and that's when I realized I was like, okay, this world is really bringing the worst out of me. Let me just stick to the music. Let me just, stay with that. I can't be fucking around with this. Nah, this is too violent for me. You know. And so spent so much time in my apartment, and I was very, very lucky. My parents had bought this big building, and they bought, like, we all had our own apartments in that building. And I had my apartment, and I was able to just be there hours, days in and out. Eventually, one night, Roberta tells me, she's like, "Look, Alton Miller is going to be performing in in a club at the Milk. Big shout out to Carlos. Milk Club, man. What a fucking amazing club that was, yo. Rue de Livourne, pop in Brussels. Forget about it, man. That club, yo, all white. CDJs all white. The mix of everything was just like, the speakers, everything was just so well done. It was really, really, really amazing to see. To experience the sound as well. The sound system was really, really nice for such a small club. And everybody was there, So that night, Alton Miller goes and played it. And I'm like, fuck, Alton Miller, this is the guy whom I discovered through Christian, when I first had arrived in Belgium. So I'm about to meet with the legend. Now, bear in mind, I was already doing my productions way before that, but it was still not at the level that it got to when I met Alton. And so, after a set, you see, he killed it, amazing set, and I went, and Roberta, who owned together with Dennis at the time, Urban Grooves, the record store, you know, that's like you getting introduced by, gatekeepers. They're like the who's of the nightlife and of the music industry over there. I mean, DJing world, etc. So better co-sign than that I don't see. And so, she looked us up, and Alton and I, we just clicked right away. And fast forward to a couple of weeks after, we became roommate for almost 4 years. He lived at my place for 3.5 years or so. And roommates, I've learned so much from this guy, man. He really took my education and my knowledge on music and of music to a level that I can't even begin to describe. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so, rest, I would say, would be history, but it would not serve justice to explain to you how Ancestral Soul came about. So at the time I met Alton, I was trying to experiment with my sounds, and so we released a project called Prelude to Emotion. If you look it up on Spotify or any of your streaming platforms, you'll find Alton Miller, Boddhi Satva, Prelude to Emotion EP, out on Alton Music. Big shout out to Alexandre Scollier, with whom I've worked since. I've met him through Alton, and ever since we met, Alexandre and I, we still work together. He's my publisher. Yeah, great relationship. And that's 21 years ago. It's crazy. Crazy. Anyways, we released that project. Soon after that release, it was, I was searching for that sound, that Afrocentric sound. I already had a sound, but I was sounding like other people, even though I had my small identity, but it wasn't establishing because I was copying what other producers, imitating what other producers were doing. So for me, it was more about understanding, learning the ropes, right? And so I would grab a track by Kenny Dope, for example, Masters at Work, Kenny Dope, Louis Vega, And rapid track by them, put it in my system and study the patterns and the syncopation and the oftness of the snares and trying to find the sounds, and I didn't really have the sounds, so I had to, like, it was, man, incredible times. And so I think about a year in, um, I hear that Oshun Lade is performing in no, that's 2 years in almost. Oh, a little less. So I was hired to work at this radio station. Big shout out to Daniel Vega, not Louis Vega. Nothing. He has nothing to do with Louis Vega, but his radio name is Daniel Vega. Big shout out to Daniel. His radio show was called still called City Groove. So he invites me to come on board as an assistant to the radio show, and also DJ performing at the radio show on the radio show. Sorry. And so, being that I was speaking English, she was like, "Look, how about we start trying to do some interviews and see what's up for some of those festivals happening this summer." I said, "Okay, cool." And so, Oshunade due to play in Antwerp at this club called Stereo Sushi, big club by the way. I mean, big club not in terms of size necessarily, but it was a restaurant and then downstairs you had a club, and it was just this, man, very unique place. Sound system, man, crazy experience. So Shulade performs that night. Yeah, there's sushi. I arranged a meeting with his booker at the time, Peter Boonen. Big shout out to Peter. It was being hard, making it hard for me to get an interview. I really had to chase that interview. And so said, okay, cool. Oshunade is ready to give you this interview. So, come tonight, be there at 11. No, be there at 10:30 or something, because at 11 he's got to be on or some shit. I said, okay, cool. So I got there in Antwerp, boom. And I just came off a heartbreak, a relationship. This girl I loved, man. I mean, I was so in love with this girl. And we it took me a long time to get over her, long time, not just get over her. Actually, we had, so we I was 19 when we separated, and yeah, anyways, one of those long heartbreaks. I think Oshunade, his energy was just magnetic, amazing, like, yo, this is freaking Oshunade. This man's music takes me to a place I can't begin to describe. And here I am in his presence, and he commands such peace and so much grace and just amazing energy. Amazing energy. So much so that I really I understand that I'm in the presence of something that is literally about to change my life. I just don't know how yet, but I can see it can cut through this energy. And so I start, giving these questions. Big shout out to Alton Miller, who has helped me, draft the questions for him to make them interesting, because I just didn't want to come at him from an angle that all the other guys would, usually come at him. And who better than a big name and a star in our music industry, like in the deep house music industry, like Alton Miller, to give me, the pointers. And he loved this interview. He said, "Yo, man," and then he put his hand. Was I on his lap? I put his hand. It was on that. So it was like this, right? I'm here. So then he puts his hand on my shoulder, so I'm from here, and he says, "I can see you in pain." I was like, "Oh no, I'm cool." He's like, "No, no, no. Somebody broke your heart." Whoa. But that's me forgetting that Oshunade is an initiated Babalawo, in the Yoruba religion in Ifa. So I'm like, whoa, okay. and automatically it brings tears to my eyes when I'm holding them, because I'm, first of all, you're in the presence of somebody you look up to. That's number one. Secondly, the man really shows true empathy and interesting, understand what's going on. No, I don't want to bother him as much. She's like, no, well, whoever this girl is, let her go. And he gave me this ritual to cleanse myself from these energies, and just to be anchored back in myself. And he said, I'm gonna be dedicating my set tonight to you. And when he started performing, to this day, the first track he played, yo, in fucking incredible from beginning to end. Music I had never heard before. I'd never heard before. Drums programming that I'd never heard before. Man, it was the first time I cried on the dance floor. That night, after he said, I went home. That night was born Ancestral Soul. That night was born Ancestral Soul. Something just clicked in me. Because Ancestral Soul was inspired by Yoruba Soul, its sound. Because the Shunade sound is very unique, and to this day, not many people have been able to emulate it. The only guy that I know who has emulated it to a rather nice level is Ezel and myself. But Ezel quickly found his own sound, and I also found my sound as well. But we draw a lot of inspiration from Shunade, and not only so many. Because Shunade has and still is a guy that sets trends. Interestingly enough, whenever this guy drops a record, creates a walk in the game. Because everybody's like, what the fuck? Oh my God. Oh my God. The following week I sent him the track. That track I produced, you can go check it out. It's available right now, any platforms. It's been out obviously since. It's called Bria's Offering, because it was an EP that I dedicated to Central African Republic, and that was my first solo EP, my first solo project after having had my first releases ever with Alton Miller, because Alton has accepted to put his name next to mine, who I was completely unknown to the game. He co-signed me, so he's my mentor of mentors. And then after that came Shunade, then Louis Vega, then Lugo Bea, then so many others in the game, Keisha, etc. So you name them. But my mentor of mentors were Alton Miller. Put his name next to mine. I was nobody. Nobody. He didn't have to. But he believed, saw my passion, my determination, my hard work. You've got to understand, I was day in and out making music. I was not stopping. Spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And let me bring it back to my parents for instance. My dad, at a certain point, I was working so much that I would not sleep proper patterns. So, and my father had the thing about morning and making your bed, etc. He's like, look, one morning I remember, and I could see, my father didn't have to, this is the connection that I had with my dad. And my mother, but in this particular case, it's my dad. I would walk before he opened the door. Even if I was in my deep sleep, I would wake up because I could feel his energy. And he would walk inside my room. And it's like a little mezzanine, so my bed was in the mezzanine, so I could see, right? And after I woke up, he just looked up and said, my son, you do what you want, but you don't have to really decide what you want to be in this life. But I'm telling you right now, sleeping late and waking up way after everyone and living that life the way you're living it, it's not leadership. That's not how you're going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in life. And he said something in French that we I believe all African dads said to the kids. L'avenir appartient à celui qui se lève tôt. Future belongs to those who wake up, who rise early. And yo, that shit struck me. I felt so ashamed. And I was disappointing him in that, you know, he had trusted me. He had, you know, allowed me to do what I wanted to do and never ever asked me to do anything else but just music. That I felt like I was not serving the purpose accordingly. But there's a very essential point here that I skipped as I'm telling the story. So if we're looking chronologically, you know, after I met Alton Miller, so when I met Alton Miller, I invited him over to a session. At the time, I asked my father to help me finance a project, musical project. I wanted to create my album, my first album at the time, which would have been my first album had it come out. And talking about it, I have to see if I can find this project, so I don't know where it is. Release these joints, because even though they're old and everything, but it's part of my history, so it's gotta be some of my CD to look at. Anyways, the man with whom I was about to work at the time, his name is Christophe Delamay. Big shout out to Christophe. STF Productions. Man, that project, I mean, you know, I've learned a lot. You know, it was a lesson learned in many ways. But also, it gave me access to some amazing musicians. Edmundo Carnero at the time, who was, you know, the drummer of Saint Germain. You know, this big guitarist who was also the guitarist of Lara Fabian and Moran, you know, big singers from Belgium, etc. And, you know, like, that's crazy musicians. So, and we spent quite a decent amount of money. We even pressed vinyls. So that's how through that experience, I met P. Robert Walker, big brother who was also, you know, a big mentor. Amazing musician, amazing writer, singer. Man, Robert is another big man in the game who has taught me so much. Alton Miller, Hervé, Mizi, man. Anyway, so I met all these people in the studio, and so that's how we really got to link up. And so that project, my father helped finance it. And in the meantime, I met DJ Pipi, Giuseppe Peluzzo, legend of Ibiza. Legend. I met him at this venue, sat down, spoke with him, so much passion in me. I managed to just through my passion convince this man. I mean, we instantly bonded and just had this big brother, little brother thing. And, you know, he came back again a couple of months later in Brussels. And, you know, I invited my parents over to his party. I still remember to this day that party that he threw in Brussels, and my father was dressed to impress. My mom was dressed to, I mean, both my parents could dress, man. God. I was so proud to come out with, you know, to this club with my parents and just be like, you know, it was just, man. And so, and they met him, and, you know, they linked up and they clicked and they talked. And the next day we had like a massive lunch. And, you know, Pippi told my dad, he said, yo, man, you gotta let your son do his thing, you know? Trust he's gonna go somewhere big in his life. And so Pippi said, look, there's the Winter Music Conference. That was Winter Music Conference 2004 or 5? Had to be. Yeah. or 6, I can't remember. One of those winter conferences. That was the early beginning of Defected. So he invited me over. My uncle, my mother's oldest brother, may rest in peace, Uncle D, was living in Fort Lauderdale, and so I went there. Still remember, man. I remember to this day this experience. It was crazy. Going from Fort Lauderdale to downtown, to Miami Beach, and going to attend these events. The National Hotel. I remember at the time they were throwing this big party where he invited me at the Versace mansion, and it was Boston Clark, Martin Solveig, DJ Gregory, Julien Jab, big night, and it was my first time getting rejected at a club in a very rude way by this French guy who was who refused to just look if my name was on the list. It was interesting times, me not knowing anybody and being shy to even go to speak to people. Thankfully, I had met couple of months before, a year before, DJ Gregory in Brussels through Alta Miller. So when he recognized me and I said, "Hey, you remember me?" And, "Oh, yeah, of course, but you're not done. It's super cool." And it was nice. Then I shook hands with all these big guys, Um, Pierre Ravon, big shout out to Pierre Ravon. Man, I met a lot of people at the time. And so when I went there with my promos. That was a time where, you bring promos to the place. I had like my pressed vinyls, we pressed vinyls and CDs. And I was carrying my DJ bag, you know, giving vinyls and business cards. Because the way it worked before is that you bring your music to Miami for the Winter Music Conference to introduce your sound, potentially get signed to a label, get played by DJs in their sets, etc. And just overall network and connect. And yeah, man, you gotta bear in mind, I was a kid that just didn't know who the fuck to talk to, how to talk to these big guys. I was impressed. I was literally shaking and not very confident with my English neither. And I was just like, oh man. But yeah, all that participated in sharpening my tastes. That experience of this project that I did with Christophe was very pivotal because I felt very frustrated as an artist. Because at the time, you gotta understand, I was not a producer. I knew what I wanted. I had done some little things, but that was not production. That was just me fucking around with beats and whatever. With Christophe, what I had learned is how you put a session together. He had all these big records that he was doing. He was working with Charles Schilling and all these big names. So it was just like, sound wise, it was not what I wanted to do exactly, except one or two songs. But also because I needed to go through my phase of being an underground artist. I wanted to have that underground cachet, that underground stamp of approval. And where Christophe was trying to take me was towards this more, French house or a little bit more commercial. And I wasn't, trying to do that. That wasn't me. But it was a very, very important experience because it taught me a lot on what I wanted. And I remember Robert Walker, one of the sessions we did, he said, look, he looked at me, he said, look, I can see it in you. And funny enough, a lot of people that I met, all of them said, yo, man, you're destined for this shit, When I first met people, they were like, yo, this is your gift, this is your calling. And I was always able to gather people, reach out. And when I was able to really understand my gift and understand what my purpose was, being able to convince these people to be part of my projects, and I had no money, but it's just my passion and my respect for others and of the craft and knowing their music and being interested in not just having them for the sake of having, co-signs or whatever, but really being passionate of having music made with these artists that I just respected was something important for me, and they could feel it. And you can feel it, when somebody's trying to, fuck around and just act like they know you, but truly they're just trying to get the co-sign of the name. They don't really give a fuck. They don't even know your history. They're not even interested in you in any way, shape, or form. You can tell. And so Rob was like, look, man, you need to do this shit yourself. You already have a vision. You already know what you want. trust your vision, trust your drive, because I trust you. And I think that was the moment when one of the moments that just got me to just like be like, okay, cool. So in that process, through that process is when PP and my parents met, and yeah, I have the pictures there. Oh man, I have to do a whole live with all these pictures and share them with you guys because it's just yo, such a good time. I am profoundly blessed and thankful for all these experiences that I've had in my life, man. Ancestral Soul is a sound of struggle. That's what Ancestral Soul is. It's an identity. It's a movement. It's my oxygen. It's more than your gimmick. It's essential because Ancestral Soul incorporates all of the influences that I've enumerated through this conversation today under one identity that is plural. It's a multitude of many things within one thing. It is almost self-sufficient. But it is fueled by our capacity, my capacity to also allow it not to be restricted to me. And that took me some time. It took me some time because at first I didn't understand that to be copied, to be referenced, to inspire others was an honor. For me, I just looked at it as a copy and as a, somebody just copycatting me and yeah. Well, understood that I was really impacting people in a way such that it led them to want to emulate my sound. It was an honor. Just like I was emulating the sound of Ron Trent, Kenny Dope, the Shula days. There's some of our early production, if you listen to them, one of them, it sounds like Shula had done it. Obviously, it's not Shula because you can see the small differences because Shula Hayes and Shula we're all unique. We have very unique sonic identities, which unfortunately nowadays, there's a lot of the producers that I see, they find a way to create a concept that fits it all. And so there's no more personality. There's no more personality or not as much. Tatiana Said, how are you? I'm on the Quality Talks. This is it. It's very good when you understand what is your gift, what is your mission in this world, which means you will always be focused to accomplish what you are meant to achieve. Indeed. And it's not something that can be taken for granted neither, because a gift is a gift. A gift is a gift, and it is important to understand that a gift without hard work, a gift without repetition of craft of mastering your craft is worth nothing. So for me, I really am a firm believer that practice obviously make perfect, and repetition is key. Repetition, rigor, consistency. I come from that school, And no shortcuts will ever get you where you want to be. None. Go up, down, left, and right. Shortcuts, they're cool, but you're not gonna learn. You gotta go through it in order for you not to miss very essential. There's essential lessons in going through tough times and in being punched in the face and kicked in the belly and being thrown to the floor and yeah, yeah. That allows you to know next time how you need to move, what you need to avoid, how you need to behave. You know, ancestral soul, ancestral soul indeed. About Shubade, which is Yoruba soul, inspired me to create ancestral soul. And it's interesting because the moment I found the name came to me, ancestral soul. My idea was always to merge my African influences with my Western influences with my all of the sound that I love because from listening to African music in general. There's no one African music, it doesn't exist. Africa is a continent, so you have so many sounds and patterns and constructions and structures. For me, I embrace them all. Then you have South American music with salsa, merengue, etc. You have Caribbean music, Western music. All of these influences are part of who I am. And so I needed something that really truly pay homage to these sounds while still being very unique. That is Ancestral Soul. And then I was blessed to meet Louis Vega afterwards, remix, music for the great Tony Humphries. I mean, shake hands and call a big brother, call someone like Joe said a big brother, or man, Danny Krivitz, DJ Spinner, man, so many, brothers like, Bradford James, Quentin Harris, Kenny Dove, rest in peace, Phil Asher. The list is long. So many DJs and producers that I respect. And I will invite quite a few on the show in the coming weeks. I am planning to put together a series of themed MQTs where I'm gonna have fellow DJs and producers, people that I look up to. I mean, Katie Tatum, fucking, all the guys of, Four Hero and fucking Rats in the Attic and man, all these legends, man, all these legends, Dr. Bob Jones, so many legends, so many legends. It's incredible. It's incredible. Big shout out to all the DJs and producers who play good music and make good music for the world. You guys are more precious than you think, and I feel very honored to have contributed to, through my lifetime, to creating a sound that really is a genre, Afro House. Eventually, that's what we call it now. Ancestral Soul, not everybody understands this, for the purists, I would say, but Afro House is the name that everybody was. And I didn't create Afro House, but I was one of those who initiated. I was one of the very few in the beginning that initiated the sound, alongside the likes of, Rancido, Zephyr Saint, obviously Louis Vega, Joaquin Jacobsel, Alton Miller, Ron Trent, tune that day. They're missing. I have actually a whole thing that I need to do on Afro House, which is going to be a show where I'm going to tell a little bit of the story of Afro House. Um, another through another MQT. Um, yeah. Family, I hope that you had a good time listening to my little story and getting a bit of perspective on Ancestral Soul and what really inspired me to embrace the path of making music. We could go obviously at depths into it, but I think that you know I've held you long enough, and if I give you everything at once, it would not be fun. So let's save some of these information for another time. And until I see you guys next Monday. I wish you all a fantastic rest of your week, and I really appreciate your love and support. You still got a bit of time to add more likes, follow the channel, and yeah, donate if you can. Stream the music, get the merch. You know what to do. As always, it's a pleasure. God bless you all, family, and I shall see you. I shall see you next Monday. Thank you very much, Tatiana. Thank you very much, Mountain of Inspiration. Thank you, Emi out there, and everyone else watching tonight, this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you're located in the world. It's really, really good to see you always connected. And God bless you abundantly. Abundantly indeed. Thank you, Tatiana, for reminding everyone. Indeed. Indeed. Y'all have a beautiful rest of your week. And remember, hard times don't last forever. Just like good times. So make sure you enjoy the process. Right? It's most important. God bless you, family.